waiting for the car to come up. And he's a key man for Tom Bonan, of course, and also for various other... Oh, somebody's off again. So this is another fall by the look of it. I'm just trying to work out who the rider is. Ooh. Kaczynski. Ouch. What has he done? We don't know. Unless he's collided with that sign in front of him. That wouldn't be at all surprising. I mean, look at that thing. It's stuck out in the middle of the road compared to everything else.
So much street furniture in Belgium. It's you know, it's just growing all the time, and you can see there, you know, the signpost. It just juts out onto the road, and you know, that is the problem. I think he just touched that, and it's you know, it's you know, the road here is so dangerous. If you do not know the you know, the road, the way the little islands, they stick out, the road signs are sticking out, you have to know, you have to race here, and if you haven't raced here, it's so dangerous, as we can see.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What happens to him? We don't know, actually. No, he definitely collided with that sign. There he is. Look. Ouch. That is gonna hurt. Thomas Fuchler in the middle for Bouygues Telecom in the blue, looking comfortable. 91 kilometres still to go. It's a massive amount of time still to go, and nearly all the big hills to come. The next couple are going to be far more telling. Knotterberg next, the Old Quermont, and then the Paterberg. Just give us a quick rundown there, Sean, on what those hills are like. First of all, the Knotterberg. It's what sort of hill is it?
Well, again, you know, they're just coming so close together. That is the most difficult thing of this, because you go to the Knotterberg, then the Oude Quermont, immediately the Patersberg, the Koppenberg. You know, in a very short space there, there's so much of difficult climbs to be got over. That is, you know, that's the difficult section here, and to get through that, and then as you go on, you know, they come pretty quickly, and you know, there's not a lot of flat section in between. So you know, it's about being able to stay up there, stay out of danger up till now, and get in a good position as you go into these climbs, who, you know, they follow very, very quickly one after the other.
And what about the Old Quermont, which is not the next one coming up, but the one afterwards? That's a bit of an elbows out, you've got to stay at the front sort of job. If you lose it on the Old Quermont, then you might as well go home.
Well, if you go on to the Old Quermont too far in the bunch, well, then it's difficult, because there are definitely going to be splits there. And again, it's in that top 20-30 riders maximum. That's where you have got to be on the Quermont, and you know, to get over the Quermont, it should not be difficult for the favourites, because at this point in the race, you know, we're still with 90 kilometres to go here. They're not going to be suffering at this point, and if you are suffering as a favourite, well, then you're going to be in problems later on. So it's just all about positioning, and just keep yourself out of danger, and get through this section without having to make any great effort where you get caught behind in a split and you have to chase to get back in, because that's something you will pay for later. So it's, you know, all about just staying up in that top 20-30 riders, and getting through this section without any difficulty and without getting into any panic area.
Thanks for the link, whoever sent it to me, I can't remember, for the helmets there. That's Laser Helmet making those painted Lion of Flanders helmets. They are cool. I like them. I shall have to get onto Laser and get one. You've got Laser helmets in your team, haven't you?
Yes.
Do your Belgians ride with a Lion of Flanders on?
Well, I haven't seen them yet, but they're probably for the big teams today. We might get them a bit later.
Yeah, get them a bit later down the line. That's it. They're cool. Aero shell cover pre-Flanders, that's right. Laser helmets debut snap-on aero shell cover for their helmet, so it goes on over the top. That's brilliant. So you need a laser helmet, and then you can get the cover. Well, there we go. We've got some... You can write in, of course, on cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com. We've still got time. The hostilities have not really started yet. Lewis Champion from Perthshire, 12 years old, just joined the Tay Titans Bike Club, saying, my dad's taking me to see Paris-Roubaix next weekend. We'll be the ones with the big Union Jack. There you go. What's the best places to see it? Well, we'll do two halves of that question. If you're ever coming here, Lewis, this is one of the best races to come and see as a spectator, because you can move from hill to hill, assuming you plan it in advance and you've got a car. You can come and see them on the hill, rush back down the bottom, jump in the car, go to the next one, or you know, leapfrog them. As you can see guys here, they run from one hill to another. It's the most amazing event to watch, because they wind in and out all the time. So Tour of Flanders is a fantastic spectacle. What do you reckon is the best place as a first-time viewer of Paris-Roubaix, which is next weekend?
Well, I think you have to find if you're going just to one section, well then maybe Arenberg is a good area. But if you want to, as we see more riders falling over.
Oh dear, more people going onto the deck. The Milram rider is Service Carnarvon. Should know better, Service. A winner of Paris-Roubaix, no less. Service Carnarvon, as we were talking about Paris-Roubaix. Sorry, you were saying, Sean?
Yes, if you're going to Paris-Roubaix and you just want to see it at one point, well then maybe, you know, the Fort of Arenberg is a good area. What else? It's, you know, it's a spectacular section, and but there's so many people, and if you want to move around, which you can do in Paris-Roubaix also, because it turns about for a long time in that in a 50-60 kilometers distance, so it's possible to see it on many occasions, but it is getting more difficult. And as you mentioned with the Tour of Flanders here, you know, to go to different areas. I was over last week to see a Travel of Belgique and then the E3 prize in Harelbeke on last Saturday week, and it's you know, there's so many people out there, and to move around. I did that with some guests we had from visiting on behalf of the team we had in the race. It's just crazy. There's so many people getting from one point to the next. It's impossible to move at times, and Paris-Roubaix is much the same situation, I would say.
Look at this. This is the problem. Get stuck at the back and you're in trouble. Kevin Hulsmans, maybe he's had attention from the team now, because he's still right at the back here, number 5 on the left-hand side. He's looking lean, actually, Hulsmans. Looking in good shape. But chasing the game at the moment, because he's had mechanical problems. Service Carnarvon is the small rider in the Milram colours right at the back. Look at this. Saxo Bank control the event here. That's extraordinary. The whole team almost across the front. Gustave Glasson on the far left-hand side of your screen. There he is. Stuart O'Grady in the middle. Frank Hoyt next to him. And I think it's Casper Klostergaard on the far right-hand side. Also Matti Breschel sticking up towards the front. Surely they must be working here for Cancellara, Sean, because Cancellara is sort of hiding himself a little bit further back, but Breschel still up towards the front.
Yes, well, Breschel was sitting, you know, much further.
Oh, look at this.
Yes, at a standstill here, and that's the problem when you're behind here with this the narrow road. It's going to slow up, and you know, when you have to stop, you lose so much time. But yes, Breschel, we see that he's sitting a bit more to the fore than Cancellara. But for the moment, you know, you need to sit back a bit. Tom Bonan, we haven't seen him at all, and that's the way you've got to do it. You've got to sit back there in 50 and 20 position. And you know, you're getting pulled along, you're not in the draft at all, and you know, you save that little bit of energy which can be so important in the final, and that's where the big, you know, the big riders, the experienced riders can do it so well. And you know, who better than Bonan, and Cancellara, he's, you know, a little bit further off the front while, but the Saxo Bank, I think again last week we see him in the races, they were, you know, very, very dominant, and compared to Quick Step, I think Quick Step are suffering as a team, as a block, and that was the case last weekend in the E3 prize. Bonan was on his own very earlier on in the race at crucial time with 80-90 kilometers to go, and Saxo Bank, definitely they're the strongest team in block.
Must be that's clearly why I think Kevin Hulsmans is so banging his handlebars, because he's got a mechanical problem. He's obviously in good shape at the moment, needs to be up there to help Tom Bonan. Isn't up there, can't be up there because the bike is malfunctioning, and they're really pushing the pace along now, Saxo Bank. Frank Hoy doing a super job here, pushing hard, beginning to string things out. They're getting into the real meat and potatoes of the race now. We'll take a break. Welcome back. The peloton is now split nicely into 3 groups with 2 minutes and 10 seconds to our 8 breakaway riders still. It's really hotting up. We're heading towards the Old Quaremont. This is the first of the big cobbled sections. You can see they're split along the road. That's the main section. All the big favourites, we hope, will be in there. If anybody's had any trouble, it's bad luck. They're in Berkham at the moment. spinning around this right-hand bend. Whoops, up over the side goes, is that Ivanov? It looks like it. It's Martin Reimer, the young German champion, doing the work on the front for Cervelo. Clearly, they want to take a hand now and push the pace along a little bit. Jeremy Hunt is in this group. There's Daniel Lloyd, second in line at the moment. Just ahead of him is Martin Kohler, I think it is. Sky up there towards the front as well. I think I see Fletcher's face lurking. But Saxo Bank clearly beginning to suffer now, because Frank Hoy on the far right-hand side has been pushing along and has now got the face on. The race face is there. Stewie O'Grady on the left-hand side of the screen for Saxo Bank. Sky's Juan Antonio Fletcher is just lurking behind here as well. This is the first of our breakaway riders being brought back, is it? It's looking like it. Oh no, it's McEwen off the back of another group. Robbie McEwen, I should have told by the Australian champions bands on the bottom of his jersey. Hinkepi on the wheel of Tom Bonin going around that corner. It's so difficult, some of these corners. How much concentration do you need in this race?
Well, at times you need 100%. Other times, if you're experienced, you know, you can relax a little bit. But you know, there's when you get into the final 100 kilometers, there's not a lot of time where you can relax. You have to concentrate all the time, because the road is, you know, very technical, narrow roads, turning all the time, and then all the cobble sections and the cobble climbs throwing in. You have to, you know, really concentrate on what's coming up. And if you know the road, the route very well, well, then you can relax a bit. But if you do not, you have to memorize it, you know, from a ride over it, and that's something where you have to really concentrate big time.
There's Matty Bratchell in the middle, and that's Stuart O'Grady. Now, what does this hill really mean? We talk to Philippe Gilbert as our breakaway riders are on it.
Le Quarmont fera toujours son rôle et il sera
the Quarmont plays an exceptional role. It's a very strategic spot. This is where riders lose a race. It's not a place where the race is won, but it's a place where the race can be lost. It'll be important to be well placed. You've got to be at the front, in particular at the top, because starting from there, that's when the battle really gets going. It's difficult to get back in the race. Well, that's certainly the assessment of Philippe Gilbert. Would you agree with that? You've got to be up to, you said that already, you've got to be up towards the front. If you're down the back, then you're always chasing the game.
Yes, and he mentioned, you know, at the front, at the top. Well, if you're not at the close to the front and the bottom, you're certainly not going to be there at the top, because you know, it's not like a long climb in the Tour of France where it goes on for 8 or 10 kilometers. If you're a great climber, you can, you know, gradually work your way up through the bunch, but it's not possible here, because we can see this section here, you know, it's narrow, it's still on the asphalt road, and you know, when you look at the route book, it says 1.5 kilometers, but that's only the cobble section. You know, there's almost 1 kilometer with drags up, where we see the bunch a moment ago. So it's all, I reckon it's 2.5 kilometers of a climb when you include the bottom section, which not is really on the route book. So it is a climb where you have to be in front, in the top 20-25 riders going onto it. And then if you've got the legs, and hopefully you can stay up there, stay close to the front as you get over the top, because then you go on, you know, to the Patersberg and the Koppenberg, and they are really steep, short, but you know, they are vital climbs. If you attack them too far back in the bunch, well, then your race can be over.
It's Saxo Bank controlling the pace of the peloton at the moment. Brashel, you can see, is the first of the red jerseyed riders here. Then behind the other red jerseyed rider with the black shorts is Fabian Cancellara, aiming to be one of only 11 men, he would be if he got there, to win all 3 early season classics, Milan-San Remo, Paris-Roubaix, and this particular race, the Tour of Flanders. Nicolas Rousseau is the big rider from AG2R being taken back as Stuart O'Grady comes up onto his left-hand shoulder and straight past him on the old Quarmont. It's not exactly wide, is it, the old Quarmont? And it's Saxo Bank setting the pace. Look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4 back is Juan Antonio Fletcher in the sky colours, looking very calm. Stewie does a brilliant job here. I wonder if he'll ever get his chance to do something for him again. He's quite happy doing the domestique works, and then occasionally he gets the chance to really shine. He's won Paris-Roubaix, of course.
And we can see Matthew Heyman there, also from the Sky team, a very experienced rider in the classics, and I think he's a one which could be important. He's just behind Stewie here at the moment. Important for Fletcher that he can go on, because he's a rider that has been in teams, with Rabobank for many years. They was with Freyr, I suppose, also with Decker, and he's I think a big strong rider, but very experienced in this race.
Just a quick bit of news. I understand, the feed coming through on Twitter, I understand, I haven't got the full results yet, that Grace Verbeek wins the women's Tour of Flanders ahead of Marianne Vos. So that's the 1-2 for the women's. But if you've got a full, I haven't got time to go and have a look at it actually, so if you've got a full rundown of the top 5, give us a shout please. And any of the British riders, wherever they came, let us know. It's spokesmen, SPOKESMEN, or cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com. If Sky pulled this one off, Sean, if Juan Antonio Fletcher could pull this one off, or any of the Sky riders, that'd be a massive coup, wouldn't it, for a first-time team?
Certainly would be, to put a new team together and to come out and win, one of the major classics. It would be a major coup, because first of all, to put a team together, to get them to work together, not easy in its first year, and we've seen in the past with some teams do that. It's rare that it works in the first year, and I think the Sky team has worked very well up till now. They've won some very good races, but today is, I think, it's the monument, and that's the one that all the big riders want to win. And certainly Fletcher, he's been knocking on the door for a number of years within the Rabobank team, and if he could do it today, it would be amazing. And he started off well this season, winning the Newsblad in February. He's a rider who seems to have a lot of talent, but sometimes his tactics maybe not the best in the crucial moments of the big ones.
Absolutely. There's him on the right hand side, mouth agape. Fletcher's just behind him, as you can see in this almost like pinky purple lensed glasses. Third in line at the moment. O'Grady's really hammering this one. He really is giving people some hard times here. 2 Australians up towards the front. O'Grady and Heyman just behind him. Then Fletcher. Then it looks like Frank Hoy, maybe. Then Bretchel. Then Cancellara. And then we'll start seeing some of the other big. Then Hinkepi, I think. Where is Bonin?
In about 10th or 12th position there, I see him going through.
And everybody jostling on this one. You can't afford to be caught out here. And the old Quermont. It's a long one as well, the Quermont. Not an easy ride at all. It's 2.2 kilometers of a ride, and if you get caught out, this is exactly what's happened. It's going to hold everybody up now. They're really strung out on this one now. And there'll be a lot of riders here who think, well, I'm in this position, I'm not particularly enjoying it. If you're feeling in poor shape by this time, Sean, then it must be just hell, thinking you've got still another 12 hills to go.
Yes, if you're getting into difficulty on this one as a favourite, well then you're going to start asking yourself, what's happening here? I'm not on a good day. But you still battle on, and you try and just stay in there, stay up in the front, and get through the sections coming through, as we said after this one, the Patersberg and the Koppenberg. And if you get that over with that very crucial moment, and you can stay up there with the big favourites, well then you can come around. And it's often the case the big favourites go through a bad period at maybe the most difficult part of the race, or at another point during the day, and you can get through and you can come through and do a very good performance, maybe win the race or get on the podium. So it's not an unknown fact that you have to be very strong mentally. If you go through a very bad patch, you cannot throw in the towel, because I think all the big favourites they get a taste of that sometime in their career in some race.
This is amazing. The whole group here is just split to pieces. O'Grady has done an enormously good job, as have Heyman on the front, of splitting the peloton completely to pieces here. Everybody, this is Garcia Costa. And the remaining part of the group of the breakers. I'm not quite sure what the Astana riders are doing in there. Have they doubled back on each other themselves, I wonder? Who knows? But look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups on the road. They've done a lot of damage at the front here, Sean. There's what, about 25, 30 riders here at the front? Maybe a few more.
Yes, and that's that's the Koppenberg. If there's riders in the bunch there that are not comfortable and not maybe the best bike handlers on the cobble sections on the quarter mount, then they're going to gaps appear, and it's so difficult for riders to get by, and that's the time you have a lot of groups on the road, as we see. And now as we go to Patersburg with our the rest what's left of our breakaway riders, a great position to be in here when you come with 5 or 6 riders in front.
Yeah.
You have a bit of room here and you can get it over with, but they're going to pay the price because they've been out there so long. And I think when we see now the bunch coming around the corner here, as you said, a very, very tight corner where you turn up, it's they're going to come at a very, very fast rate.
This doesn't give you any idea of what this is like, these riders here. They're just sitting in there pedaling up it. This is so steep, you would not believe. It's about 1 in 5 towards the top. Getting out of the saddle line, they don't look as though they're really trying, but it's unbelievably hard work. This is the hill I was saying when Museu, out on that press day, just stuck it in the big room, went straight up the outside just to show people how it can be done. And silence well, wipe the smiles off somebody's faces. But anyway, it is incredibly steep, and they're getting towards it now, the main peloton. You can see the crowds are enormous at the Tour of Flanders. They've done a good job this breakaway. There we are, look, there's the right-hand bend as they go into it, the Patersburg. It's Stuart O'Grady hammering it at the front now. Saxo Bank really trying to take control completely. Breschel looking cool, looking calm, looks over his shoulder. It's Fabian Cancellara and Juan Antonio Fletcher next to each other. Then just behind, Tom Bonen in the Belgian champions jersey. As you can see, the Belgian flag at Lars Boom on his wheel there from Rabobank.
Leif Holst here on the left.
Yep, in the white Leif Hoster. With the black and red shorts. And it's now Breschel setting the pace towards the front. And it looks like Bonen who's sitting in the wheel. Matti Breschel, Tom Bonen, Juan Antonio Fletcher, Fabian Cancellara is about a bike length back to Lars Bohm now, who's suffering on this very steep hill. Thor Hushoft trying to stick with it. George Hincapie in the American Champions jersey riding for BMC here, trying to put the pressure on. We're seeing the favourites showing their hand. It's not over yet, Sean, but they're just showing who's strong and who isn't.
Yes, well, I think Breschel there, he's just upped the pace a bit, and he's caused a bit of problems. O'Grady, of course, after doing a lot of riding there, in difficulty, but I think we'll see him getting back to the front again because he's not far off. But a lot of the favourites showing their face there, and that's one, as you said, it's very, very steep at the top, and you have to be really to the front, because if somebody have a little bit of a mechanical problem, then you have to slow down and difficult to get moving again. So all the favourites really being very, very careful and staying right in the top 10 over this one.
No sign of Philippe Gilbert up towards the front at the moment. We didn't see him go over, but he could have been, but he's just a little bit further back. There's Tommy Vogler in the blue of Bouygues Telecom, just going around the outside of what looks like Ian Stannard of Sky. And there's Sergei Ivanov. Ivanov just in the middle of the pack. Kurt Arsla Arvidsson going through the shot. I haven't seen Balan either, but no doubt he'll be somewhere towards the front. Ooh, this is hard work. Really suffering now. Some of these Frank Hoy just really beginning to suffer on the back, but he's done a lot of work on the front. At the very, very back of your shot here, number 225, Steve Hunau of Skilschaman. He's at it. He's had it. Cooked for the day. And Bonen, Hincapie, keen. Well, at this point, Sean, if you find yourself in a very elite group like this, what do you do? Push on, or just sit up and wait and try? And it's just a bit of a test. Well,
I think as we see here, if you're in a position as we see Bonen there, and he was given the signal for Fletcher to come through, get everybody rolling through here, because they have only 10 riders here, and considering the next climb, it's a very important one, the Koppenberg. So roll on here, try and get everybody working, everybody to do their little bit on the front and share there, the pace setting, and get to the part as well, because if you slow up here, you allow a lot of riders to come back, and then you're in the same position going on to the Patersberg. You have a bigger group of riders, and it gets more dangerous, to get up the climb. The bigger the group is, the more dangerous it gets, because if there's somebody has a little bit of problem getting up the climb, loses momentum, loses his rhythm, then you could end up a lot of riders having to walk the final 100-150 metres of the Koppenberg.
Yeah, Koppenberg is, well, at least it's dry, thank goodness, for the Koppenberg. But I tell you what, this is a very, very elite group now. It's whittled down. They've got 76 kilometres to go. It's at 72.8 kilometres, the Koppenberg, so less than 5 kilometres from the finish of the Patersberg. And Fabian Cancellara and Matti Brechtl keen to keep this little group running along. Thor Hushovd has made this group. There it is, we can see it. Brechtl is the man looking over his shoulder. Bonen in the Belgian champions jersey. Lars Boom has made it into this group. Fantastic riding by the young Dutchman. Really, really good indeed. Cancellara is in there, we know. Hushovd is in this group. There he is, right in the middle of the shot. Juan Antonio Fletcher in the sky colours has already won Het Neuspad, which of course used to be Het Valk. Before that used to be Ghent. George Hincapie looking good, actually. This is the best I've seen Hincapie being in positions for a long time. He's never really, I mean, they make a big thing when they're sort of big image around George Hincapie as a man for the classics, a man for Roubaix, a man for the Tour of Flanders, but he's never pulled it off. And I always find it quite brings a smile to my face that a lot of marketing goes on. There's a certain, well, his brand of bike, BMC, have been advertising their bikes and the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix with George Hincapie on it being the specialist, but he's never actually pulled one of these big wins off, has he?
No,
yet.
He hasn't. No, yes, and it's going to be difficult now because he's getting to the end of his career, and to see him in this position, as you mentioned, now in the race, he's been there before on a number of occasions. It's all about in the final, when we get into that final 30 kilometres. Have you got it? Have you still got the power left to be able to match the big favourites and stay up there on the very, very final climbs of the day? He certainly looked like one who could put off a Roubaix or a Flanders. He was every year he was there or thereabouts. Sometimes we remember in the Paris-Roubaix one year he was, I think, in very good shape, and he had a mechanical problem where he broke his handlebars and crashed very heavily, so that took him out that year. And the Paris-Roubaix as a one is a race where you need to get through the race without having any bad luck, and if you're in good shape and you're a specialist like Hincapie, well, then you can do something. But a lot of riders in very good shape and just not having the luck on the day, and it's wiped out their chances of getting maybe their first victory in this style of event.
He's had a nasty couple of crashes in Paris-Roubaix. One where the handlebar stem snapped in two and just went completely. That's one of the problems with carbon, of course, it just goes, and he had a nasty fall. Pace has eased up a little bit, just a little bit, and some riders being able to come across. There's a lot of vocalization going on from Bouygues Telecom here, and lots of talking. Who's going to do what? What should we do? What should we do? They all say. Right, we're getting to the Koppenberg. This is what Philippe Gilbert has to say about it. The Koppenberg comes after the Patersberg. It's a very hard hill. Koppenberg is a very special one. It's a hill we start climbing almost from a steady situation, but there's a 90-degree curve just before the hill. It's difficult to put the speed on because of the cobblestones. You arrive at maybe 22 kilometers an hour at the start of the hill. It's very steep, 16-17% to start with. And then it's very delicate as you go across it. Even if it's wet, you have to be up the front, make sure that you get on the good ground, otherwise you have to restart. I think it's a bit easier to actually get onto than perhaps some of the others, but it's certainly not a nice one to finish on. 22% to finish on the top.
Yes, and Gilbert saying that 22 kilometers an hour. I don't agree with that. I think it's about 42 kilometers an hour.
I think so.
If you arrive in a bigger group, it's always very, very fast. It's just a sprint. The final 2 kilometers into it. When you're in a smaller group, yes, maybe they take it that little bit easier, as we have a situation here with about 10 riders out in front. But if that's going to grow now, because there's a group just about to make contact with our leaders. You know, it is a one again which is all about, you know, staying as close to the front and getting a good run into it is very important. As you said, I think the Koppenberg is not as difficult as the Patersberg, because the Patersberg is a very, very tight corner and you have to slow a lot, so you lose a lot of your momentum.
Yeah, if you can get the momentum, it's a little bit easier. This is our front four men with just 43 seconds in hand now. Garcia, Costa, Ignatiev, Gosinen, and the rider from Vacancellara. And this final group is Just van Leyden.
And I think they're going with fear at the moment of not making it to the Koppenberg, because if you get caught before by the group, well, then it's a difficult situation. If you've been out there for a long time, some of the riders I think are starting to, you know, to really tire here in this breakaway, or what's left of the breakaway. But if you get, you know, onto the Koppenberg with, you know, 15 seconds or 20 seconds in advantage, you have a chance of getting to the top. And you know, that's it's very important that you get over this one, because after that the other climbs maybe not as difficult and you could, you know, stay in for a long time.
Here we go then. This is the bottom of the Koppenberg. This is absolutely legendary. This is the point last year where Fabian Cancellara snapped a chain. Game over for Cancellara. There was no way up. The cars are not allowed up here. It's too steep. The problem is that if it gets a little bit wet, and most cars now front-wheel drive, they just simply can't get up the cobbles at the top. That caused absolute havoc at the race. They've got bigger cobblestone sets on either side. They resurfaced this about 3 or 4 years ago. You can see the winter we've had, though, is beginning to break things up again here. They're not easy cobbles to go up, not like the Patersberg. The Patersberg is a much, much less rough surface. This is a nasty surface. You just got to dig in and go for this one. 22% at the top. And any slight bit of damp on this and you start to spin the wheels. That's a great shot. Oh, you're going to have to watch it, though. And watch for when the rest of the peloton arrive. As Gosinen has the legs at the moment. Garcia Costa with the big thighs there going for it now. Here come the rest of the peloton. Are they going to take it easy, or is somebody going to really push the pace? Last year we saw Tom Boonen trying to pull on, push on, push on, push on. And there he is again. In the Belgian Champions jersey, Brechtel looking across at him. I'm wondering if the other BMC rider back there is Balan, but I can't see the World Championship stripes on the sleeves yet. Just mopping up the rest of the riders at the moment. Oh, Brechel's giving it the big licks at the front. Oh, there's a problem already. Now you're going to have to get out of the way. As over goes Fletcher, Hincapé, there's Gilbert we've just seen. I think that was Thomas going over the top for Sky. Goosenen's just about to get caught, as are the rest of them. There goes Hushoff. He's slipping down a little bit, is he? Is that Stannard maybe? It's difficult to tell from the Sky jersey who it is. Just flashing underneath there. That's how they get up. They run. No problems yet. Lloyd going through the middle of that. He's good. He's well up there, Daniel Lloyd. About 30th back at the moment. Oh, Breschel is strong, really strong, and Bonen's gone with him. He knows he's the strong man on the day. They put a big gap in between themselves and the rest of the favourites. Too far out to really, really keep going for him. Now still 70 kilometres, but it shows, Sean, who is strong and who isn't.
Yes, well, it's the strong man, and Breschel is the one who is the inform at the moment. Maybe not one of the big favourites, but I think he is showing in the last week certainly in top shape. Bowen, of course, also very much up there, but too early. And I think, you know, they're just going to wait and see what comes up from behind, what sort of a group joins them, and certainly, you know, far too far out from the finish. 70 kilometres to go with a two-man group, and Bowen is not going to, you know, get involved in that, I think, with Breschel.
I don't think so. He's just shadowing things at the moment. But he does like to play a bit of a psychological game here. Oh, problems for one of the Garmin transition riders, and once you get stopped on this thing, it's almost impossible to start again. Martin Rehmer having to run up, the German champion. He's only 21 years of age. Oh, bounce, crunch, bounce for more riders from Rabobank. More problems at the front.
Nuyens, I think, in trouble there.
Is it Nuyens?
Yes, it looks very like him. And it's surprising to see him back there, because he's a rider who, you know, normally know the terrain very well, very experienced in the classics, and he's a long way off at the moment.
I thought it might have been Rick Flint's, but I'm not sure. Look at this. Thank goodness it isn't raining. Oh, all sorts of problems. If one person stops in front of you, whoop. Oh dear. Toppling over. There was Tiziano Dall'Antonio. And then that's it. Half the peloton have to get off and rush. The really famous...
Miller.
That's Miller, stuck in the middle, yep. And was that Balan there? No, probably USR. Oh, struggling. No major mechanical problems. The really famous one here, of course, was Jesper Skibby, who took a flyer before this hill, had to go up it, toppled over sideways, had a problem, toppled over sideways, and then the commissaire's car ran over the top of his bike. And I think you were not far behind on that day.
That's true, yes. Skippy was out in front, of course, and this commissaire's car was between himself and the main pack, and Skippy, he just fell over, lost balance, and difficult situation for the driver of the commissaire. What do you do if you stop on the climb? I think all his windows would have been broken by riders coming up in the bunch, so he decided to go, and it was just that little bit tight, and he caught the rear wheel of Skippy and had to just drive over it. And I think they were the choice there to stop or to go on. I would have certainly continued on or tried to continue on, because with a charging bunch coming up, it would have caused havoc.
Another 5 kilometers and we get to Steenbig-Dries. That's the next hill in question. Then Teinberg, Eichenberg, Molenberg, Leiberg, Berendries, Ten Bosch, the Muur, and then the Bosberg. These are still our 4 remaining men. It looks like Mr. Armstrong not particularly giving it big licks then, is Lance. Bit of practice, day out in the countryside for Lance Armstrong. Well, he has a different agenda, but I think it's a bit of a shame, really, that he's not giving it a go. Maybe he's just not feeling on good form, or maybe he's got a problem.
Yeah, surprising to see him that far behind, because
well
we had seen him earlier there, very much in the to the front of the bunch, and seemed to be comfortable enough. So it looks very much like that he had a problem, because I think Lance, again, he's a rider that can do very well in the classics, and to stay up there in the top 20 or 30 to get through this this period of the race, I think he's very capable of doing that.
Through the feed station then as Gussinen gets his musette. Away he goes a bit onto the side of the road. Always a problem. It was one of the big problems with these cobblestone sets, these pavés, that you can bounce around and bottles can sometimes fly out. I think it was it Flanders where André Schmil had a dreadful accident and broke his leg? And was it Roubaix? I can't remember, but it's a similar situation. Sometimes the bidon can bounce out, and then you hit it or hit the water that's on the cobbles, and away you go. Incidentally, talking to André Schmil, he's the oldest man to have ever won this race, 37 years of age, more than 37 years of age. So it's almost over for our remaining 3 men out in front. Inside the last 70 kilometers of the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, we had 8 men in a breakaway, and they've all been mopped up, bar those 3 that you just see going through the feed station. And there's a pretty elite group now towards the front. All the big favourites made it over the Koppenberg without any problems at all. Lance Armstrong, well off the back, doesn't seem to be bothering too much today. But Matti Breschel and Tom Bonen looking to be the 2 very strong men, but they missed out last time. Showing your hand this early, you never know, you may just be a little bit too much, but everybody looking, all the big favourites looking in good shape. No Pipo Pozzato this year. He's out with a stomach bug, and you never know, he might be ready for Paris-Roubaix next week, but it's looking ominous for somebody like Bonen, for example, who's in good form to do the double again. We'll just have to see how it goes. Somebody on Cow Passage, it's an interesting screen name, on Twitter saying, has anybody ever won Flanders after walking up the Koppenberg? I don't know. I should imagine they must have done. I can't see that in the history of the Tour of Flanders that they didn't have to walk up and then go on to win.
Guaranteed. That's riders walked up and still came back.
Van der Arden?
Yes, and you know, it's so often the case in the past. If you get the weather conditions not favourable, well then, yeah, maybe 5 or 6 riders make it, and you know, a big amount of the favourites then has just to walk up. And if you get off your bike and just run, you know, and get back into it again, you don't lose that much. It depends on what position you're in. If you're further back in the bunch and the whole road gets blocked up, well then you lose a lot of time. So you know, I would be pretty confident that there's somebody have won a Tour of Flanders and having to walk up the Koppenberg.
Ignatieff, Goossenen and Van Leeuwen. We could be wrong, by the way. We've had about several people writing in saying that wasn't Lance on the Koppenberg. It looked like it to me, but apparently it wasn't him, so we'll just have to double check on that. We do get it wrong. Thanks for the corrections whenever you send them in. And this is the group. There he is at the back there, 161 in this group. I'm not sure which group this is, but it's not the lead group. So there he is, number 161 at the back. Can't see either the Swiss champions jersey or the Danish champions jersey up to the front, so I assume this must be Group 2 on the road. Sky is driving along at the moment. On to the next hill. This is Steenbeck-Dries. Just 0.7 of a kilometre in length, not particularly hard. You can see that the cobbles here, cobble sets are pretty good. And Sky wanting to control this one at the front. Fletcher clearly in really good form. And they've managed to get 3 or 4 riders back up to the front again, Sean. There was a time that they sort of lost contact a little bit when Saxo Bank took control over Koppenberg and pushed and pushed and pushed. So Sky, good riding. They managed to get 2 or 3 riders up to the front again.
Yes, it's good to have a number of riders here, because if you look at the leading group here and the big favourites, there's you know, some of the teams who haven't got maybe many here, and I think you know, Quick Step and Tom Boland might be the one who is suffering here. Not many Quick Step riders looking to be there on the front. As we can see, the Sky just, you know, quite a few riders. But you know, it's sometimes when you have a lot of riders here to take it up at the moment when you don't really need to have to do that, you can make that mistake, and you know, you can sometimes you can you know, burn your men out that bit too earlier. So it's important just, you know, to calculate well and not get carried away when you have 5 or 6 riders in this leading group of whatever it is, about 30 riders, which I think most of the big favourites in here.
Just winding their way through over. This is a long section. This is a nasty bit, actually. If it gets wet here over that little level crossing, it can be nasty. I've seen people come out a right cropper there, and you can go hell for leather down this section until you get to the tarmac again. It really is quite a fast section of cobble. "30 seconds to our 3 leading men, 66 kilometers to go. They're well strung out. Here's the favourites at the front. Cancellara, Bonen, Bretschel, Fletcher is there. I'm not sure who the Garmin rider is. Maskant, maybe? Omega Farmer have a man up here as well. And Fabian Cancellara also with a man right up at the front. Could be Hugeland. Could be Vestra or Leukemans. Just easing up a little bit now at the front. Sky have got control. Everybody else is happy to just let them continue. 2 from Liquid Gas in here as well. Cancellara may be one of them. Well, that didn't look like his style. Difficult to tell from overhead who is right up at the front. Lots of riders getting back into contact, moving forwards. So we've got about, what, 40 riders here. still hanging out there with 29 seconds. Kuusinen having a good run. He seems to be dragging them along when they get to the hills. Tegenberg. Great crowds once again. They're always at the side of the road. They'll be dashing from one hill to another. But I remember doing some filming for Eurosport here once, with, and trying to find a decent. I had to go from hill to hill, try to get from a decent place to another to try and get some shots. And when you say to some guy, well, you just sort of get, you've got to press bib on, you get up the side of the climb and you get into a decent spot to take the shots. And some guy came out and said, hey, we've been here since 6 o'clock in the morning, jog on. Fair enough. You got me over a barrel there. Breschel on the far right hand side, Fletcher right next to him, then Cancellara. Gilbert is up here, Lars Boom is in here, who's on the right hand side as well in the Rabobank colours. Hincapie. I'm impressed to see Boom up here. He's got so much talent, Ron. He can do anything.
Yes, and you know, it's for Boom, it's the style of race, a bit like cyclocross, but you know, the distance is the thing where you have to be able to do that. And you know, as we go now to you know, into the final 60 kilometers, that's where you really have to be able to match the big guns. And it'll be interesting to see if he can stay on up there, as we see the Boulder here trying to make his way back up. And you know, he is the one which you know, as a favourite and as a past winner, you know, he's a bit too far off here, because making the effort here to get back to the front, I think he can pay for that later. And I don't think his shape is good enough, although he's getting good. I think he's a little bit off to be up there in the final shake-up today.
Well, if this is the front group he's trying to get back up to, then Armstrong is definitely in this front group. We've just seen him ahead, 161. But Stein de Volder, we've not seen him at all. As Ivanov trying to get back to this group as well. We've not seen him at all until this point, bidding to become, I think, one of only 2 men to do back-to-back, to do a triple consecutive wins in the Tour of Flanders. It's not something that's been done very often. .27 kilometers to go, and it's just one of those nail-biting points, isn't it, Sean, where you just wonder what's going to happen next, who's going to launch the next attacks.
Yes, it's the time now where the some of the smaller riders and the smaller teams, you know, will be nervous, because if we get into a situation where they, you know, start looking at each other, the teams, the riders start, you know, playing about a bit, and attacks start going, that's where you have to be really careful. If you're a rider, a second-rate rider, a little bit of an outsider, to get into a move here, because they could get away, and it could be the one that's to succeed all the way to the finish. As a big favourite, you've got to just, you know, really be really concentrate. And the other big favourites, of course, you have to, you know, watch them, because you cannot allow them to get any advantage on you here. And also, you know, the groups are getting away, who's in it, what teams are in it. That's all very important. So there's so much happening from this point as we, you know, come into this final 60 kilometres.
Ignatieff, Kuusinen, Van Leyen. Still looking over their shoulders, because the peloton is just a little bit behind them. And it's Sky and Saxo Bank have been animating it so far. Boland's just been able to ride the coattails of others, really. And now push coming on from Omega Pharma. It's Leif Hoste trying to animate things a little bit. Matthew Heyman doing the shadowing for Sky. Even that little injection of pace has strung it out a little bit now. 62 kilometers to go. The next hill they'll get to is the Eichenberg. This is just such a fabulous race. It really is. And a very select group getting together now. If Stein de Volder can get up here and do something like he did last year, I don't think he's got the legs this year, to be honest, but he would join Firenze Magni as being the only other rider to have won 3 in a row. I think it was the early 50s Magni won. Arvesen at the back in the Norwegian champions jersey. in this group here. Good on him. Kurt Larsen, who joined from Saxo Bank, joined the Sky team, and they have great experience from a man like Kurt Larsen, but will be fighting in this particular one because he broke his collarbone in Qatar. Thomas Fuchler, so close to colliding with the camera. Look out for 161 as being Lance Armstrong. My guess is he's probably got something Livestrong on as well, which is the thing. And Fuchler trying to load up on a couple of gels, I would think. Good for him to be there. He's having a good early season, Thomas Fuchler.
Yes, I think he's had a good start to the season, and the Paris-Nice race he was you know, very much in good shape, and seemed to be up there with the big favourites, climbing very well. Unfortunately, on the penultimate day, I think it was, he lost a bit of ground through a mechanical problem. Otherwise he would have finished up there in the top 10 of the general classement, so he's going well. But this sort of race, I don't think it is his cup of tea, but he can, you know, get out there and defend, and he's a rider. If he finds himself in a leading group and it starts to attack, he's the one who, you know, would start going in the attack, or certainly be with the attacks going away. So, you know, he's not a rider that should hang around in the bunch and just follow the situation, although at the moment, as you see, he's just trying to load up on some gels, and we could see him a little bit further, maybe having a go and trying to form a group way out front.
Gosh, wouldn't that be a turn up for the books? Thomas Fuchler wins Tour of Flanders. That really would be a turn up for the books. But at Isel, I've seen up towards the front here, Sean. He's been having a very good early season as well.
Yes, and you know, I think the good point there is in the Ghent-Wevelgem game, winning that, you know, that tells us that the form is good. But again, you know, there's no guarantee. The riders that have won Ghent-Wevelgem in the past, you know, they have problems in the other bigger classics. It's just that little step up in the difficulty and also in distance. And we have seen a lot of the winners of the Wevelgem, but it's good for Isel. He is in a team today, and we're just reading there. Mark Cavendish was saying if he can give Isel a hand out, because it's always the other way around. They're always working for him, so he would like to be able to do something for Isel. If the occasion, you know, presents himself, he will certainly do it and try and get Isel as far as possible, stay with him as far as possible, and give him as much help as possible.
Got to say that I haven't seen much of Mark. I'm afraid it's not maybe not his cup of tea, this one. Here we are on the Eikeberg, another fairly long one, 1.3 kilometers of length. Again, not such a rough section of cobbles, but such narrow roads on the Tour of Flanders. And Matthew Heyman from Sky doing a tremendous amount of work on the front. Super job he's done so far. And finally, our three men are going to be caught by the top of this one. Heyman's still working. Bretschel, hands are just nicely relaxed on the top of the bars on the right-hand side of your shot. Leif Hoste is looking in good shape. He's always, or has been, always the bridesmaid, never the bride here. Pipped by all sorts of riders. Not seen anything of Balan yet either. Already won once, the former world champion. In fact, he came to prominence in this race about 4 or 5 years ago, finishing in the top 3, I think. And everybody went, well, who's this guy? Balan, a very classy rider, but we haven't seen anything of him so far in this year's Tour of Flanders. But it's still early days. It's 60 kilometers still to go, and one of these couple of teams trying to control things at the front, and Sky doing a good job. Saxo Bank have been doing a very good job, and Bretschel, Cancellara, Fletcher, Bonen, all looking threatening. There's still time, isn't there, Sean? If you're in this lead group but not really showing yourself at the front, are you conserving a bit more energy? Is there still time for you to make your way to the front? Surely there is.
Yes, there's sure time to move here, and if you're if you're a rider who can, win this race, or who have done a performance in the past or have won in the past, and at the moment, just stay, stay in this leading group, stay in a position where you're not going to get caught and get left behind in a split. That is so important. But also, not to show yourself on the front here, and certainly not to ride on the front and do any of the pulling. That is the way to do it, and wait for the moment, because we see the Sky team, they're really pulling along at the moment, so there's nothing you can do. There's no point to go into the attack at this point, because the pace is much too high. We have seen from the rear, like when we see Thomas Fuchler and a number of riders there, they were really sprinting, coming out of the corners to stay in the group. So you have to wait until until it slows down a bit, and if it starts to attacking, then if that tactic comes into play, well, then there's a time to move. If you're a rider who feel that they're not going to be able to be good enough to match the big favourites in the end, you've got to try and get out of this one with 40 kilometres before the finish, and try and get into a breakaway that maybe will succeed and go all the way.
In your day, Sean, when you were riding the Tour of Flanders, who was the greatest rider of the Tour of Flanders that you saw, other than yourself, of course? I mean.
Well, during my time, in my best years, there was Van der Aarden, Plankert, Steve Bauer, Phil Anderson. Kuiper was there also for a period, in the beginning of my career. So the names that you see in the results, they were always the big favourites when I was taking part, and they were always difficult ones. You come up against some of those riders who were really on a good day, and always difficult to beat them. And it's the team situation as well. If you have a team where there's maybe two of those riders in the same team, that is a big advantage, because if you go into the final with a number of riders in the one team, well, then it's very important.
Only one British rider's ever won this race, Tom Simpson. Back in 1961, managed to outfox De Philippis. De Philippis in the end. I think De Philippis actually eased up when he got to the line, and he'd already got the better of Simpson, as far as I understand it. And De Philippis eased up towards the line. Simpson went, "Oh, hey, I'll have some of that," and out-sprinted him in the end. He didn't have the same sort of kick as De Philippis, but he did win. The only British rider ever to have won the Tour of Flanders. Who knows? Maybe things will be a little bit different. It's Jürgen Roelands who is pushing on front.
Well, he has a rear flat there, and he's just keeping it going. And it's a difficult moment here, because between two groups there's no service car actually, so he just had to keep on rolling and stay as close to this leading group as possible until the service come.
We'll take a short break. And there's Armstrong on the far right hand side in the black and yellow helmet of Livestrong. Welcome back. Kurt Archler-Arvesen, who's managed to make his way back to that group, is now on the front setting the pace. A super strong man, super experienced and super tough. Also in this group just behind him was Marcel Seberg. It's Fabian Cancellara here behind the car. He's obviously had a problem. We're not quite sure what that problem is, but off the back of that main group now. He's got, looks like O'Grady, who he's just passing. Cancellara, there's a little bit of a panic on his face there. Look at the speed he's going though. Be careful. Commissars will be very, very watchful. He's getting a bit of a tow from the Saxo Bank car, and he can also go like the clappers as well. He passed Thomas Fuchler at a rate of knots there. 56 to go. He's going to have to try and go past. In the slipstream he gets again. This is going to be a bit careful. Got to be a bit careful about this, Sean.
Yes, he has to be careful, but I think he will get a warning here. It's not like in a stage race where you get a time penalty, but he's going to make a change here.
Yep,
again.
Bike changes it. Yep, bike change for Cancellara. Running along, getting his new bike straight into the saddle.
Here comes O'Grady.
O'Grady's behind him, is it? And Stewie O'Grady. Oh, look at the power of this man. He goes straight past Thomas Fuchler. And he's got great bike handling skills as well. Cancellara around the neutral service car, gets a little bit of a push off. He's a clever rider. Now chasing chasing onto the back of the next group of riders. He's going to get back up there. But a little bit of a heart-stopping moment for Fabian Cancellara. Terrific bike handler and so strong. All perfectly executed though by Saxo Bank. They took him up to a point where they couldn't get him any further at speed and then changed his bike over. Incidentally, it wasn't until the 1950s you were allowed to change your bikes. Here, if I remember rightly. Back in the 1930s you could start receiving, so well, originally you couldn't get any help at all, but then back in the 1930s they managed to allow you to get spare tubes and tires and so on handed up to you. Then in the 50s you were able to swap your bike if there was a problem with the frame or fork, and that was about it really. No such problems these days. In fact, they used to tag the bikes before the start. I think the day before the start they used to take you had to take your bike to the officials, they'd tag them so that they'd know which bike was you were riding, and if you finished on another bike then that was deemed to have been illegal, unless of course you had a frame or fork problem in which you're allowed to swap the bikes. No such problems today in today's racing. Bretschel right the way back here, clearly wondering where Fabian was and trying to get him back towards the front. The hand goes up. They still need something from the car. Back on Soleil rider up towards the front is Just van Leyland here. Well, this group anyway, he's at the back of this front group. He's been caught as a breakaway rider, now he's just trying to hang in there. And Bretschel sitting in the back. Clearly the plan is to work for Cancellara then, you'd think.
Yes, well, for the moment it looks like yes, Cancellara is the man, but again it depends on what happens in the race as we go further into the final. You know, Bretschel, if there's a lot of tactics being played, and we've seen it before where the big favourites start to look at each other and you know who's going to take up the work on the front, who's going to control the race. That is the question. And if you've got a team with likes of Bretschel, who is you know the second man in the team after Cancellara, well, it's a situation you can always put him into a move away and use that. You don't have to control it, and for Cancellara that is you know a good card to be able to play, but you've got to you've got to have the riders up with you. And when you look at the front group at the moment, it's going to be interesting to see who've got a few riders up here. Sky looks to be the ones which have quite a few, and they're you know control the situation for the moment.
Gregory Rast on the back of this group with Matty Bretschel just ahead of him. Good day for the Belgians so far in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the feminine race, the ladies race. Grace Verbeek of the Lotto team, the Belgian Lotto team, takes the victory ahead of Marianne Vos and Kirsten Wild of the Cervelo test team. There's something going on here because Bretschel was out of the clip there. He needs a bike change as well, does he? Clearly a problem for... Oh, what's going on with this? Let's have a look. Bretschel waiting for another bike. They can't get it out the rack. That's not good. Oh, slight panic going on here. They can't get the bike out of the rack. Or maybe they got the wrong one out. Oh dear, there's all sorts of problems. Bretschel saying that's the wrong bike, surely. He's not happy, Sean. I think they've given him the wrong bike, haven't they?
Well, it looks like that is it's not the bike that was first choice, because the mechanic seemed to go to the other side and could not get the bike out for some reason.
Yep.
Yes, Bretschel doesn't look too convinced with this bike, but for the moment to get moving he needs to do that, because if you keep hanging around here you're going to lose a lot of time to get back in. And we see there Jan Ries got out of the car quite late. He was allowing all the cars to go by, which is a good thing to do, because if you block the whole road, well then there's a big gap between the back of this group and trying to get back in there. So to have the cavalcade of cars in between is so important. And you could see the experience of Ries. He actually passed Bretschel and pulled in just a bit further on, and I think that was his idea, to allow the cars to go through and not have a big gap to close down for Bretschel later on.
Interesting, isn't it? Such a smooth change for Fabian Cancellara, and he's right back up at the front of this group. Bretchley's been doing so much work. Not a good change. Real problems. Geraint Thomas on the left-hand side for Sky. And I think the other rider is Stannard, and I'm not sure. It looks like Stannard. Looks like it, and he's had a great early season as well. Two strong British riders at the front for Sky now.
You can see Stannard's style. His knees are a little bit sticking out. Not
all over the place?
Yes, all over the place, I suppose, is the way to put it. Not a very nice position or a nice style on the bike, but efficient at times.
Effective. Effective indeed. This is Breschel with Larsson by the look of it. Just trying to pace him back towards the front. Gustav Erik Larsson has another big strong man who's sort of had a resurgence at Saxo Bank. He could never settle at a team. Went through teams like they were water. Heyman once again pushing on. That looks like Staff Sheerlinks in second spot. But Leif Hoster looking very calm and cool and collected. Hoster, a very tall man with a very small head, I have to say. And enormous legs. He looks like a cyclist. Couldn't be anything else but a cyclist if you saw him close up. Fabian Cancellara once again wearing helmet at slightly jaunty angle. Does seem to always flub over to one side. Hincapie looking very cool, always in the right place at the moment. Thomas comes to the front, pushing the pace along now. Thomas gets into this next turning first. And now beginning to string him out. This is great riding by Geraint Thomas. Dominic Rollin from Cervelo test team with Thor Hushovd here. Has Hushovd had a problem? I would say so, because Roland's looking over his shoulder to see where he is and try and pace him back. Big, strong man. Time trial specialist is the French-Canadian Roland. But for these sort of events, absolutely perfect. Thomas has made him line out a bit here.
Yes, and it seems to be the tactic from the Sky team that to make the race really difficult. Excuse me, we could see Thomas there, really just turning up the gas. The Lotto rider there just making the pace, but Thomas wanted put it up that much again, and the tactic, they probably have a tactic out there to make it really difficult and split this group, not allow riders maybe to get back in, possibly to eliminate as much riders as possible as we go further into the race. And maybe Fletcher, that's what he needs to make the race really difficult, as difficult as possible, and that's the way he feels he can do something in the end.
Certainly does. Heyman is the man on the front again here for Sky. They're pushing them. It's a case of whether they take the bait, really, isn't it? These guys behind. It's still 51 kilometers out, but they've got 3 or 4 riders in here, Sky, or 2 or 3 riders they could possibly push on if they're feeling strong enough. It's a little bit too far out to play this tactic, I think. If they were to take it a little bit further in towards the finish, then people would have to respond if you've got 3 or 4 riders going off the front all the time. But nobody seems to be taking up the challenge at the moment.
No, there's not a lot of teams interested, and we see Heyman there, pushing it on. They're allowing him to just go on. You have to ride it with a number of riders from the team, as we see just a little bit earlier from our shots where the Sky, they had maybe 3 riders, and if you want to make the race difficult and really put the pace up, then you have to ride with a number of riders on the front. Otherwise you're going to have the situation which we see here where they will allow 1 rider just to go off. But it seems to be with the Omega Farm Lotto team that they just wanted to slow up things for the moment.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way. Maybe Philippe Gilbert is thinking, I need a bit of a breather here. Need to keep things under control. Well, look who it isn't pushing along on the front. It's Mr. Armstrong himself. Lance in the black and yellow helmet. We missed that completely early on where he was, but there he is. Lance Armstrong did get into that front group. He's got Tom Bonin 1, 2, 3 back. Also Philippe Gilbert sitting in there as well. And the rider from, that looks like Frederick Willems actually, the rider from Liquigas. Well, I'm not convinced at the moment, as Heyman stomps on those pedals ahead. And more pressure coming on at the front here. And everybody's beginning to look now. It's under 50 kilometers to go, and they're beginning to see who's going to make some sort of dig here. None of the big favourites want to do so, and some of the other riders think, well, actually, we might have a chance if we can get away. There's Balan, first time we've seen him in the BMC colours. First time we've seen him up towards the front. Alessandro Balan has tried to make this race his own. A world champion in Varese, and all the big favourites in this group. Well, Heyman's not getting particularly far, but fair enough. They've sent him off to try and do his bit. And Armstrong is the one who's pulled out a little bit of a gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riders here, still a bit too far. And they're all looking at each other, Sean, now. I mean, what would you be doing if you're in this, not in the Armstrong group, but in the main group of favourites here? What would you be thinking right now?
Well, I think there's riders and teams who have to be careful here, and I mentioned some time ago, when you get to this situation where there's a bit of attacking out of the leading group or the leading part of the peloton which is left out front, you just have to start making your calculation there. If you have a team which haven't got a big leader and they're going to maybe suffer in the end, well, this is your opportunity here to try and get into the breakaway and the attacks that are going. Certainly, if you have a rider or a number of riders up here, well, then you have to start trying them into those groups that are getting away. If you're a favourite, then it's the situation you have to watch the other favourites and make sure that there's not one of them that slip away in a group here. So there's a lot of tactics you have to remember, and the breakaway as well is a danger one, because if you take the like of Saxo Bank, if they send Messi Breschel up here, well, then Cancellara is going to play that card, and he's going to always say later on in the race, if he's getting to the very final, I've got a man up there I can't chase. So when you go in the attack and you find yourself with Bone and with Cancellara, there's always going to be maybe someone who will just try and get carried along because they have a teammate up front.
But surely they have to. I mean, everybody's still looking at each other here as Armstrong looks like he's responding once again to the little dig here. Surely they have to think that Matti Breschel is having trouble. He's off the back, or has been off the back. One of the really strong aids for Cancellara, that double whammy that could have come into effect, is neutralised at the moment. And surely they should perhaps make sort of hay while the sun shines.
Well, I think there's not much. There haven't been much opportunities to do that because the pace has been very, very high for quite a long time now, and it's just in the last number of kilometres it maybe have slowed a bit, and we can see that because the riders are starting to attack, and that tells us that the pace has dropped off a bit. When you see groups of one rider, 2 or 3 riders going off the front, that tells me that the pace have slowed a little bit. So there haven't been an opportunity, and I don't think the big teams like a Bonan's team, Quickstep for example, they, as I said, they haven't got the form of past. They are not performing as well as a block, and I think they were struggling there for quite a while. We did not see many of them to the fore as we went up the Patersberg, the Koppenberg, all of those climbs. So there's not a lot you can do in a situation like that. As a favourite for Bonan, you just have to wait and see what way the race develops, and try and get your calculation, get your tactic right as we go into the final of the race.
Matt Heyman sitting up really, waiting for the 3 to join him here, and they're all going to get back together fairly shortly. Faulkner's man has made his way up to the front of this main group here. Just shows that he's in good shape, but actually the pace has dropped off. It's more to the point.
He's had his gel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Look at that great long line of cars. You can just see how difficult it is for a rider who's been dropped. Here is Matti Breschel, and he's got Thor Hushoff for company. And is that Bohm? Looks a lot like him on the left-hand side, Lars Bohm. It just goes to show if you get distanced here now, well, you can make use of some of the cars, but it is still quite difficult to get back up to the lead group on these small twisting roads here.
Yes, it's always difficult on this race because the small roads, and you're always turning left and right. But it's so important that you have the cars, behind the group that you're trying to make your way back into. And for Breschel, he's making use of that. We see him with the Rabobank car there, and I'm not sure if he was still calling the team car because he was looking around there. Was he signaling the car, the commissaire's car, to go by, or was he looking for his team car? I'm not quite sure on that, but. He is, about to make contact at the moment, and the cars, they can help a lot, and you can save a lot of energy because you go from one car to the other to get back into the group. You stay behind a car for a time, and then you just leapfrog to the next one, and you make your way back into the tail end of the group that you're chasing.
Some more interesting riders beginning to surface in the little breakaways now. We could see Martin Vinance is the rider from Quick-Step. He's not going to be doing an awful lot of work at the front. Bernard Eisel's managed to tack into this group there. There he is for HTC Columbia. Bernard Eisel, a good classics rider in very good form, with the Ghent-Wevelgem win under his belt this year already. And they won't want to let him get anywhere further than he is now. Daniel Oss is the rider from Luca Gasly's setup. That's not going to happen for them now. 45 kilometers to go. Still, the big favourites are in control. This is the Molenberg. This is a nasty one, this one. You come on it at 90 degrees. It's often either the first or early on in this Tour of Flanders. It's a twisting, serpentine type of climb. Quite steep. Gets steeper as it goes through the first bend. And quite rough, this one as well. And Oss beginning to suffer. Look at the way that pumping on those pedals on the right-hand side is Tom Bonen. Cancellara showing a bit of strength. Whoa, my word. Straight to the front to force the pace along. Now the other big favourite to be looking at that. Oh, he's put about two bike lengths into everybody already. Cancellara going up the Molenberg, showing he's got the strength. Looks over his shoulder. Who could stay with me, he says, and it's Tom Bonen. Oh, these are two great rivals for the classics now. They've both won Paris-Roubaix. Bonen's won Flanders, and I'm afraid that Cancellara hasn't yet. That's what he wants to do. Oh, that put a big split in there. That really did. That's hurt a lot of people there, Sean.
Yes, and it's amazing, the power of Cancellara. We see just, in a very short space, he put such a distance into the group that he was originally in, and with Bonen, he'll have to make a big effort to get into the wheel. But when we see here now, they're just pulling away. It will be interesting to see with the Sky team. They have a number of riders, and this is where you need one or two teammates to really, to ride and to take you back into the position, because for Fletcher here, to come across this on his own, it's going to be a big effort, and it's a big ask, and that's why you need to be minding some of your teammates a bit earlier on. I certainly would be doing it. I would not put him on the front and get him to really push the pace along. I think I would wait for a more crucial moment, and this is it at the moment.
Even so, though, it's still a long way to launch an attack. 44 kilometers to go. This is the bit where you'd always see riders like Ludo Dirksens getting to the front, and all the favourites going, oh, thank goodness for that, because we know he's just going to ride till he can't ride anymore. People get a bit of a shelter on this bit. But it's Tom Bonen and Fabian Cancellara, the two men who've been given the top ratings by French paper L'Equipe. Fletcher is looking nervous there. Look, he's looking up the road to see where the other two are, whereas Heyman is just looking at the road. Interesting. You can see, even here, you can see, if you've got HD, you probably see their eye line. But Heyman, it looks to me, is looking up the road to see where he's going. Fletcher's looking where the other two are. Eisel and Hincapie taking the chance to get some nutrition down their face while they can. How much are they going to be eating in a race like this, Sean? How difficult is it to take food on the Tour of Flanders?
Well, it's a more difficult race to take the food, because it's a very race that's turning left and right with all the small climbs, the cobble sections. It's not like in a stage of a Tour of France or on any big stage race for that matter, where you're on much better roads, much straighter roads. But you have to keep on eating here. 260 kilometers. You have to be very careful that you get sufficient amount of food down you, and gels, all of that, but they will have experience from other events. But you know, the longer event today, you know, like last week they had, you know, 2 semi-classics, 200 kilometers, but that extra 60 kilometers, you really have to be careful there, and that's where the experience counts as well, that you know how much you have to eat and when you have to eat.
There's a lot of looking going on here. Martin Vinance is the rider chasing down Bernard Eisel here. Eisel, there's only 16 seconds between Bonin and Cancellara in these groups. Eisel is the man ahead, looking over his shoulder. Fletcher in the black and white of the Sky team. Vinance is not going to do any work. He's got a man up the road. It's the Belgian champion, Tom Bonin, replete in a new Belgian champion's Eddy Merckx bicycle, as you can see. They are now the bike providers for Quick-Step. And Fabian Cancellara now on the front doing the work. Vinance and Eisel just having a few little words, looking at each other. Nice looking bike, gotta say. We'll take a short break. These two away. They've got 17 seconds of a gap. Welcome back. 13 seconds of the gap. They're beginning to close it down on Fabian Cancellara and Tom Bonin. It's been Philippe Gilbert who's started that extra work on the front. He's looking over his shoulder, see who's going to come with him and help him all the time. Is that Miller? Looks like him in this group, coming up behind from Garmin Transitions. Looks an awful lot like David Miller. We'll have to make sure it is David Miller. Oh, that's a great move. And Stein de Volder's in there as well, by the look of it. Not quite sure. It could be Barredo. I just saw a flash of the arm, and I just wondered whether it was a Belgian flash on the end of the jersey or a Spanish one. Both of them haven't. 40 kilometers still to go. They're looking so smooth, Fabian Cancellara. He looks just as smooth when he's on the cobbles as he does when he's time trialing, Sean. He's a terrifically stylish rider.
Yes, it makes it look so easy, and on the cobble sections, as you said. You know, going at this rate looks so uncomfortable. But for that matter, Bonin as well, a very good style here, and you know, able to ride over the covers, looking comfortable. It will be interesting to see this. You know, this will it succeed? And you know, Cancellara, I think, surprising first of all to see him going in the attack, because Mathieu Breschel was just trying to make his way back into the group that Cancellara was originally in, but he wants to make the race difficult. Cancellara, that's the way he can win this one. In the sprint, as we all know, he's not, you know, great in the sprint, and with Tom Bonin, if he, you know, leaves the race become easier for Bonin, well then difficult to beat him in the sprint. And by doing it this way, you know, taking Bonin out with 40 kilometers to go and make them ride, you know, with a rider like Cancellara, difficult to match Cancellara in the final if they do succeed of holding off this group. But you know, quite a few teams and riders here prepared to pull it along, so it looks, you know, like that we could see a regroupment once again.
15 seconds is the gap at the moment between Tom Bonin. He's the Belgian national champion. He's won Paris-Roubaix. He's won Flanders. He's won them twice each. Behind Fabian Cancellara, the man who's bidding to become one of only a few men who won all three of the early season classics, one after another. Milan, San Remo, Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Kinziato with a problem, is it? Looking for the car anyway. Yes, definitely has a problem. And this is the group following. Looks like Iglinski on the left-hand side, and Martin Vinance just slowing the pace up a little bit. Look, very clever riding by the Quick-Step rider on the right-hand side. Is that Sebastian Langeveld, I think, from Rabobank? Could be wrong, but I'll have a good look at him in a minute. And this group has got 20 seconds now of a gap. It's amazing when you watch Bonin and Cancellara together. It is Stein de Volder who's got up there. I thought it was. We saw him there. That's terrific riding by de Volder. But this is difficult. He can't play the card yet because Bonin is up ahead. De Volder would dearly love to be one of only 2 men to have won 3 consecutive Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders, sorry. Lorenzo Magni, the last man to do so back in the early 1950s. He looks so smooth, Fabian Cancellara. even with the jaunty helmet angle. Whereas Tom Bonin sometimes looks like he's just pumping and powering his way through these cobblestones. Such a different style. And it's the other great Belgian team, Omega Pharma, Lotto, who are having to push on now. And Leif Hoster trying to close the gap. We've already seen Gilbert doing a little bit of work. And Stijn de Volder is the man benefiting from this. Martin Vainant's right behind him. Is it going to be a power play between the two Belgian teams again? It's so important for, if you're a Belgian, especially a Flandrian, to win this race and not any other.
Yes, it's so important, and for a Belgium team and Quick Step, you know, they are the team that's they have, I suppose, the better card with Tom Bonin, because he's got a sprint. Gilbert at the moment, I don't think his shape is as good as Bonin. He's capable of winning it when he's at his best, and at the moment we see Quick Step, they're trying to just block the situation here, make it difficult for the chasers, just rolling to the front and slowing the pace down, and they're succeeding because it's growing out now to 27 seconds. Yeah. You know, it's a good situation for Quick Step to be in. I think it's the best situation for the moment.
Nobody really wanting to take up the full weight of things. Steve Chanel, now he's already won a stage this in the last week or so in Japan, and is in super shape, and finally, you know, got good confidence in himself. He's ridden for a number of other teams before this. I think he was with, no, who was he with before? Can't remember. But French teams. And Steve in good shape, clearly in good shape. And suddenly, out of a small group, with actually David Miller in that group, he suddenly managed to get his way out of it, and was in and has really boosted his confidence with a win. There is Lance Armstrong. Third group on the road now for Armstrong. And he has with him it's Burkhardt just behind for BMC. Difficult sometimes to see, actually, on the overhead shots from the helicopter. The Radio Shack and BMC colours are very similar, especially in the wet. Cancellara still motoring on. Bonin's taking turns on the front, but not that many big ones. Cancellara is a consummate time trialist, and he's just going to move on as they go through Elst. 36 kilometers to go. And 23 seconds. David Miller moving the pace on a little bit. Stijn de Volder doesn't want to let Miller get away. Miller thinks, I think he's perhaps got the skills to ride away from this group and ride across to the front group. De Volder knows that's a good move. And as De Volder reacts, everybody else reacts. Well, if Miller gets a shake on, that wouldn't be such good news for Bonin and Cancellara. One of the world's top time trialists, can really get his head down when he wants to. I bet a lot of David Miller fans very happy doing this. So he's got a good move. They've sat up a little bit at the back. They're not chasing him now. And that's good for Miller.
Yes, it's a good move, because we could see, you know, they were not really pulling well together, and with De Volder, you know, certainly not going to do any of the work, really just blocking the whole situation to get out of this one. It's a good move by Miller, because 25 seconds at the moment, if you're allowed to grow over the 30 seconds, then it's always, you know, so much more difficult, and it's still going to be a big ask for Miller here. But if he's in good shape with his trialing ability, he could come across this gap. And it is the moment to start doing something about it, because the gap is growing out all the time for our two leaders.
Absolutely, and Isel's trying to shut the gap down to the chasing pack, the second group on the road. So it is Cancellara and Bonin ahead of David Miller, who's in the in-between gap. Miller, then followed by a group of riders including Stijn de Volder and Martin Vainant, also in that group as well. Both from Quick Step, and not contributing an awful lot to the pacemaking, as you would expect. Then back to this group with Isel pushing things along. Lance Armstrong is the next man on the road. The AG2R rider who's just been swept up. I'm not at all sure who it is. There's our front two men, Bowman and Cancellara. Very cruelly, somebody saying, maybe it isn't, it's Holly actually. Who'll be exceptionally pleased that David Miller's coming across, I know. Saying maybe he doesn't wear his helmet, Cancellara, this is at a jaunty angle, maybe his head's just wonky. Cruel. Good move by Miller, really good move. And the funny thing is, Sean, he hasn't had to put a huge amount of, a massive amount of effort in to get away from the other group, because Standervolde initially chased, then he sat up a little bit, waiting for the others to do something, and they haven't. So Miller not having to put massive effort in the moment.
No, and no, he just waited at the moment. There was quite a few of moves and attacks, and we see that the quick steps were, you know, just closing things down. But went at the moment was good, but he did go very strong, because we could see the Volder. He went after him, you know, and tried to get back into his wheel. And again, it's difficult with Miller, because he is, you know, very deceiving, such a good style. It looks like that he's not really trying and going that fast. But if you are trying to, you know, bridge that 3 or 4 bike lengths of a gap, it can be so difficult when Miller really just turns on the gas.
Fabian Cancellara doing the work on the front now. They have 2 or 3 men in this group, which is good for them. Daniel Oss, you can see the back of him there for Liquigas in that group with Lance Armstrong. And now Philippe Gilbert pushing on. He's trying to drag them up this climb at Berendries. One of the tarmac climbs, Gilbert. And he's causing a few pain and suffering moments behind. Steve Chanel just hanging in there, which is great stuff for him. But Standervolde being distanced, I think he's really suffering. Head's going down for Standervolde there. And Gilbert has put in a big attack. And he's going straight up to David Miller. Miller will have to hang on to this one now. He gets out of the saddle. He knows they're coming. He can work with them, Sean.
Yes, well, this is a good move now with Gilbert and Lukemans, who was going quite well. I think last week he was second in the Travel Belgique, and so he is also one who is in good shape. And Miller, you know, he needs 1 or 2 to make it possible for him to get back up to Cancellara, because on his own it was going to be a big ask to do that. So with the 3, if they can get working well together, they have a good possibility of making it up to Cancellara and Bono.
Well, Miller will be hoping that it's trying to force some of those guys to get back up a little bit, give them a little bit of a break, realise that they've just made a big effort to get away on Berendries to get across to Miller. Now Miller will start looking behind to see where everybody is. Philippe Gilbert knows the score. You've got to come through, do some work. Leukemans is the man sitting at the back at the moment. They're going to make this group 5, are they, in a minute? There's still 30 seconds by the look of it between these 2 and the... Now, is that group the main group 2? I would imagine it is. As Boden hops over the inside. Cancellara takes the outside line. Looking over his shoulder is Fabian, world time trial champion. Never won a world road championship. Just had a damn good try at it, I have to say, in Mendrisio. But he's now here with probably his nearest rival in terms of power and ability for this sort of race over the last 3 or 4 years. It's Tom Bonen and Fabian Cancellara. They're being pursued by David Miller, Philippe Gilbert and Bjorn Leukemans, and here they come. Welcome back to the chasing group here, trying to get on once again to the Gilbert. I think they have, by the look of it. Gilbert, Leukemans, and is that Iglinski straight ahead? That's Hosta.
Incapi, Hosta.
Yeah. And I think it is Iglinski from Astana. And still up the road then is David Miller, Philippe Gilbert, and Bjorn Leukemans. And just ahead of those riders are the 2 biggest favourites for this year's race, and they've gone very early. 44 kilometres is when Fabian Cancellara launched a big dig on the Leberg, pushing away. And Tom Bonen responded immediately. That huge pumping style of his compared to that smooth style of Fabian Cancellara's. And there they are. The chasing riders trying to track down Cancellara and Bonen. Well, they say group 2. I'm still not sure what they're meaning by group 2 here, Sean, whether they mean the bigger group or these three here. I surely can't see them going out to 53 seconds.
No, I think this is it's the bigger group at 53 seconds at the moment. Difficult to see where, you know, it could have grown out to 53 seconds for our 3 chasers here, but again, you just never know with these 2 up front, because Bonen, as we can see here, maybe he's not taking as long of pull on the front, but Cancellara certainly, you know, he's the strong one. It'll be interesting to see if it has grown to 55 seconds for our 3 chasers. Then it's, you know, going to be a major task for them to make it back to our 2 leaders.
This is going to be really, really difficult if they do this. I've got the 10 Boss is the next hill coming up, short asphalt hill, and I want to get to that before everybody else. Cancellara gets into almost time trial mode again.
It is 56 seconds for our 3 chasers.
It is indeed.
107 back to the third group. 108 now, back to the third group on the road. So it's growing out rapidly.
That is a remarkable piece of riding by these 2. It just goes to show how good. You've got to say that Fab's been taking most of the turns on the front, but Bonen's now coming through to do an equal amount. I think they know that if they can keep this one up, it's between those 2. They're going to have to work exceptionally hard behind to get back on with 54 seconds of a gap. Really difficult now. Are we going to see the Tour of Flanders contested with these 2 riders now, Sean?
Well, it looks very much the situation, because I think our 3 chasers, you know, of Luckermans, Miller, Gilbert, they would be really trying to, you know, to get across this one as quick as possible, but they're not, you know, eating into the time advantage. It's growing out, in fact, so not looking good. And again, you know, Gilbert, I think he was struggling when the attack went, when Cancellara attacked with Bonen reacting, and you know, that was the time to go. And when we did not see Gilbert, he would have the experience, but if you haven't got the legs, well, then you cannot do it. And I think on that climb he was just a little bit in the red zone, as they say in cycling terms, and just could not react. And you know, it's not a good indication for going forward. And now he's, you know, not just strong enough to be able to ride with the 3 chasers, for the 3 units right together to be able to eat into this advantage. It doesn't look like they're going to close it down.
It doesn't look like it. 53 seconds is the gap at the moment. On to the 10 Boss. This tarmac climb with Fabian Cancellara. He flicks the elbow to try and get Bonen to come through and do a little bit of work on the hill, but it's not going to happen. He's certainly not going to come through and do it there. He's not going to attack on this point either. 52 seconds the gap behind. Leukemans is really taking a bit of a tow, you know, he's been taking a bit of a ride. And maybe he doesn't have the legs, maybe he thinks he does, but he's just sheltering there. So it's really 2 against 2. It's Cancellara and Bonen against Gilbert and Miller at the moment, and Leukemans is not really taking much of a turn on the front. Difficult to know. He looked strong enough getting out of the group, but you never know in a race like this. You can suddenly just go away from you. Here he is. Look, he's still at the back. But he is in good shape, as Sean's been saying. He can get a podium place in Belgique. He can certainly do something here in the Tour of Flanders. 53 seconds, holding steady now, Sean.
Yes, and you know, they will be made well aware of that, our 2 leaders, by their directors, and you know, that's the way they will calculate their effort here. Not allow the 3 riders to get back to them out in front, because then it's a more difficult situation with 5 leaders. So I think for both our leaders, it's in their interest that they do not allow these 3 to get back in, and I think that was the calculation. They, you know, they really kept it going strongly, maybe upped it a little bit when they they got the information that there was 3 chasers, you know, out after them, and you know, it's still, you know, as you say, looking for 54 seconds at the moment. It's just keeping it stable. That's what they've got to do now, and just continue on at this for a while until we get closer to the finish. And it's going to be an interesting final with 2 out front. But with Lukemans, I think, you know, he has good form at the moment, putting in good performance. But again, he's getting to the distance, 230 kilometres. You know, he could be getting into difficulty. Not, you know, a rider who has experienced that a lot in the past, and being in this position, certainly not.
55 seconds then. I mean, is there a case for these 3 thinking, right, look, we're not making any inroads at the moment, shall we ease up and let the other guys come to us?
No, I think you have to just keep on battling here, and you know, when you see the advantage 117, if you can hold it at that, and they're going to start, you know, losing a little bit of interest behind the ones who are chasing, if they're not going to close down to the 3 out in front, the bigger group, let's call it the group of Fletcher and co. They're going to start losing heart as well, and that's what you've got to do, because they're riding for a place here on the podium. 3rd place is still to ride for these 3 chasers, and also a very good place for, you know, for all 3. A top 5 or a top 10 in the Tour of Flanders is such a great performance.
All that work done by Sky, all not coming off at the moment. Juan Antonio Fletcher in that 3rd group on the road now. 56 seconds back to the 2nd group, including David Miller. But Saxo Bank getting their man in exactly the right place. Fabian Cancellara is just super strong, able to stay at the front all day and ride away. Made his move on the Leiberg, and only Tom Bonen could see that that was a really, really strong move, and went with him. Well, I'm sure they could all see it, but he was the only man who could go with him. I've got to say, Cancellara is looking very cool here. Very good. And he's doing the bigger of the turns on the front, although Bonen, of course, is helping out. They know they've got to stay away. When will these 2 go hammer and tongs at it, Sean? Is it going to be as late as the Bosberg? Are these one of them going to attack on the Muur? What's it going to happen now?
I think Cancellara is going to attack on the Muur. He's going to try it on the Muur first of all, and really test Bonen, because that's you know, his chance of winning this one, if he, you know, continues riding to a very late stage in the race, then it's going to be, you know, difficult to get rid of Bonen in the sprint, of course, unless he can really, you know, give Bonen a very difficult ride all the way to the finish, and Bonen, you know, comes to the sprint very, very tired. He's going to be, you know, very, very difficult to beat in a sprint. So Cancellara will definitely try on the Muur. First of all, he will really just turn up the gas and see can he put Bonen in difficulty, and if he doesn't do it there, he will try it on the following one again.
So we're going to come down to the last 2 hills then. They've been over the 10 Boss. It's the Muur, coming with only 15.8 kilometers to go. They're just sort of recouping now while they can. 50 seconds is enough of a gap. And then it's the Bosberg with just under 12 kilometers to go. Long hill, the Bosberg. Well, long enough at that stage of the race. Not the longest in the race, of course. It's a mixture of cobbles and asphalt. At the bottom it's asphalt, it's cobbles at the top. 980 meters. The Muur, half that distance, 475 meters. Very steep though, nearly 10%. All cobbles. This looks like a good gap now. 52 seconds only from these 2 back to the chasing trio, Philippe Gilbert, David Miller and Bjorn Leukemans, but that's more than enough at the moment. And the weather, well, it's been wonderful all day since the very, very start. Back to our 2 leaders here in the Tour of Flanders. 50 seconds is the gap between Fabian Cancellara, Tom Bonen, and these 3 here, Philippe Gilbert, David Miller and Bjorn Leukemans. Well, Cancellara and Bonen have been building up to this week, this whole week now, with Tour of Flanders this weekend, and then live on Eurosport we'll be showing, of course, Paris-Roubaix next week. Ooh, nasty weather. Is it going to blow over? This is the chasing group at 122 back now. It's all holding steady gaps. Hugeland in this group. He's got teammate Bjorn Leukemans up ahead. Must be terribly disappointing for them not to get a Tour of France start, Sean, while we're just here. We're looking at the Vacances boys.
Yes, I think you know, they did what they need to do. You know, taking on French riders, they put a huge effort into it, but unfortunately they were up against, you know, the teams. When you look at the teams who were selected, well then it's, you know, difficult to you know, it's difficult to say, well, they should have been in instead of any of those teams that are in there. I think, you know, the two that missed out, Skill Shimano and Vacances Soleil, they were the ones who were always going to be doubtful for me.
Yeah. And to be fair, they've taken it very much on the chin, haven't they? They've said, well, you know, we tried what we can try, but there's so many good teams around. We have to go with the best lineup. Just one of those things. Must be a terrible disappointment, though. Well, congratulations, I've got to say, to our host broadcasters. Belgian television have done the most fabulous job once again on the Tour of Flanders. They really know how to produce pictures for a race. And we benefiting here on Eurosport. And the weather's been good too. 51 seconds. It's still holding on there with 19 kilometers to go. The top 10 places, Sean has said, in the Tour of Flanders really mean something. They would very much like it to come down below 50 seconds though, and start catching them. They're not going to, though, I don't think. It's going to come down to a two-horse race, I think. .129 back to the main gap, and they're coming up now towards the Mur. And let's see what Philippe Gilbert, one of those chasing riders, has to say about it.
Philippe
Gilbert saying, before you get to the Mur de Grammont, for the 5 kilometers beforehand, which is where they are now, by the way, you'll know if you've got the legs to do a performance and to be in the right place on the hill. It's really hill because it climbs harder and harder all the way up to the top. There's a massive crowd, a huge atmosphere, and you always have something, you always feel something unique when you go to the top, and you've got massive motivation by the time you get there. Last year I had a chance to get second or third position, and it was a wonderful moment, and it gives you a tremendous amount of motivation when you're up towards the front because of all the atmosphere that you get through. It certainly does. Even if you're riding the Sportive ride, which is the day before, which is yesterday, tens of thousands of riders do it. We haven't mentioned it at all this time because the action's been so good, that when you go up there you really do get the feeling of the whole place being something special. Just shaking the legs out a little bit. Here's Tom Bonen. Cancellara had done a fair amount of it so far. In the following group, Leif Hoster and Langeveld. De Volder, Hugeland's in there as well. But these two, 44 seconds. The gap is coming down a little bit, Sean. I think it's still too much for the others to make up. And Bonen is now looking a little bit more recovered, and in fact, if anything, Cancellara is looking a little bit more as if he's put that extra effort in.
Yes, it's interesting to see now as we come to this very important climb, the Capelle, the Mur as we call it. Maybe you know, they're just thinking of that, and both of them are, you know, trying to just conserve a little bit of energy. Cancellara, it's possible that he's just, you know, knocking it off a bit, not riding as strong on the front, and if he's going to try an attack here, that's what he's got to do. And you know, 44 seconds on advantage, it's still, you know, it's quite sufficient, because if you go on the attack here, well, then you're going to pull out a number of seconds again, and I think the three behind maybe are starting to pay the price, and we will see the real picture, I think, after this one, how well the two leaders out in front here will climb this very important part of the race, and the three chasers, how well they can do it. So I think we'll get a very clear picture as we get over the top of this one.
Here they go then. This is the just the brick paving now. Now they turn onto the climb proper. Through these massive crowds, they'll swing around to the right here. It gets steeper and steeper and steeper up towards the top. Left-hand turn again, and then climbing out of the sort of urban conurbation here. Cancellara setting the pace on the front at the moment. It doesn't look like there's going to be a big stinging attack at this moment. You never know, though. These two riders just will know each other so well.
And of course this section here is not the most difficult up through the town. It's a bit further on when you turn up, and it gets quite a bit narrower the road. That is the real section, and you know, Bowen is going to sit in the wheel here. He's not going to do anything trying to take the front. His, I think, tactic will be just to try and stay in the wheel of Cancellara to get over this one.
There used to be prizes for the climbs themselves. Used to get preems going over the top of these many years ago, which you got huge action by riders. They don't have that sort of thing anymore, where you're out for money prizes for each climb. Cancellara still setting the pace in the front. Bonin quite happy to follow here. 44 seconds back to our chasing group of riders. They'll be on the lower slopes now. Here they swing right. It's going to get very steep very quickly onto the rougher cobbles, away from the block paving. Now Bonin moves to the right hand side. Cancellara quite happy to let him go there. It gets harder and harder and harder as they go up. The crowd's absolutely manic for this race. They love it here in Flanders. They're still just pacing each other at the moment. Oh, David Miller beginning to suffer on this very steep climb now. Further back, it's Leukemans and Gilbert, who are just pulling away a little bit now from Miller. Standing on the pedals is Tom Bonin, both of them back inside. It's almost incredible to think that riders like yourself, Sean, and these guys, they just sit in the saddle up here. I mean, most people are suffering. If you ever ride this as a leisure rider, you just suffer a million deaths going up here.
Yes, and you know, the best way to climb is in the saddle. I think you get more power in. When you start getting out of the saddle, it's difficult to get traction, especially on this section, which is really steep. And as we see Cancellara just, you know, turning up the gas here and really trying to put Bowen under pressure.
Oh, and he is as well. That's fabulous. Oh, he just sits in the saddle and turns the pedal. Oh, what class. And Bonen's struggling. Bonen's struggling to hang on. That is super class. Oh, that is fantastic. Oh, that is brilliant riding by Fabian Cancellara. He just sat there and turned on the pace, and Bonin, no response at all. He's really suffering. He's having to fight the bike up the hills. Tom Bonin being cheered on by a huge crowd of Flandrians. He is their man, but Cancellara has just ridden away at the moment. How far has he made that gap? Well, it's big enough that the cameras can't see it. Where is Fabian Cancellara? Remember, he's got the skills for descending as well. Oh, look at that. That's a massive gap. He's pulled out, what, 300 meters? 250 meters. That is brilliant, and he's just seen he's got it. He's got a ride to the, he's got a time trial to the end now. He's still got the Bosberg to go. That's it. That is a brilliant move. And Tom Bonin, who looked so comfortable at that time, just blown away, Sean.
Yes, and it's Cancellara just, you know, so impressive, and you know, just turns it up, turns the gas up a little bit. Looked like he wasn't making that effort, but you know, when you're trying to stay in the wheel, and Bowen, we could see him just doing everything in and out of the saddle, trying to limit his losses there, but just no way he was going to be able to stay in the wheel of Cancellara. And you know, it's lovely to see, but you know, it's when you're like Bowen and you come to a climb like this, you're just starting to tire a little bit. Cancellara, it's so dangerous, and you know, that was his tactic. He take Bowen out from a long ways before this climb and trying to work him over a bit, and that's exactly what he's done.
He certainly has. Working him over a bit is a mild understatement, and now he's got it. Now he's got the bit between his teeth. Tom Bonin knows he's got the world's best time trialist ahead of him, and that he can, that world's best time trialist can go into time trial mode. There's nothing Bonin can do now except get his head down and try and go for it. Oh, there's a familiar pose, isn't it? Hands on the middle of the bars. He might as well have been in a time trial bike. Well, with the exception perhaps of Alberto Contador, is Fabian Cancellara, well, different type of rider, but is Fabian Cancellara the most impressive bike rider in the world? Who knows? He could argue a very good case that he is. And that must be terribly demoralizing, Sean, if you're in a position like Tom Bonin, where you know you're in good form, but there's just no answer to this.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Although it's a great performance by Bonin to match Cancellara when he did go in the attack on the Molenberg. He was the only one who could react and stay getting the wheel of Cancellara. And as we see here again, the effort by Cancellara, it just it looks like that he's just taking a pull on the front here, but there's such an acceleration there, but just do not show it because of his style and the power, of course, that he has got. And we can see Bonin here out of the saddle, really sprinting. And once you lose Cancellara at this point in the race, well, then it's very demoralising for Bonin. If it was a reverse situation where Bonin went on ahead here on this climb, well, Cancellara would have some chance with his time trial ability. But for Bonin, against a Cancellara who is one of the world's best time trialists, and also when you're a little bit suffering on the climb and he rides away from he's got that little bit of extra energy left, it's going to be impossible for Bonin. And he realised that immediately when he started to lose 2-3 bike lengths. I think from there on you just have to limit your losses, get over the climb as quickly as possible, and just go to the finish as fast and as quickly as possible and try and hold the chasers off. Now I think that is the objective for Bonin, to try and get the second position out of this one.
What do you do? I mean, how quickly do you have to alter your game plan, Sean? I mean, how does your mind work when you think, that's it, I can't stay with him? And then the panic situation, of course, you could start chasing the game, and then you run the risk of losing your second place as well.
Yes, well, on the climb, we could see Bonin there. He was just giving it everything and try and get over the climb as quickly as possible. But then you have to get into a rhythm, and certainly not go into the red immediately after the climb. Bonin, I think he could see, and he realised immediately there was never any way back to Cancellara. So you have to think about the riders that are chasing from behind, and just calculate your effort from here on to the finish. And I think that's what Bonin is doing at the moment, as we see 36 seconds or 38 seconds, sorry, for Bonin, and 109 for our chasers. So Bonin still has a nice advantage, and he should be able to hold that off to the finish if he doesn't really tire on this the final climb of the day.
Bosberg, yeah. Here we are. He looks as though he's plugging on, but I think it's taken a little bit out of him going over the Muur. Now where is Tom Bonin? Here he is. He's never going to get back. Head's going down between the shoulder blades. He's pushing on as hard as he can, but he's still not got it in him. Just shows how incredibly difficult it is, this race. Cancellara digging in now. He's got 12 kilometers to go. If he wins this race today, he'll be one of only a few men who've managed to win the opening 3 classics of the season. Not all in one year necessarily, but to add them to their palmares. The others being Schmil, Kuiper, Ras, De Vlaming, that's Roger De Vlaming as opposed to Eric, Merckx, Van Looy, Derek, De Bruyne and Bobe, and Van Steenbergen as well. In fact, Van Steenbergen was the youngest ever winner of this race, 19 years old. Last man to do the triple was Andre Schmil in 2000, when he was the oldest winner ever of this race at 37, well over 37. And Bonin still powering up the Bosberg, but Fab is over the top. The Fabian Cancellara fan club on the left-hand side at the bottom of the Bosberg. Just a little nod by Cancellara. He's even got the grace to give him a little nod as he goes past. World champion, former world champion Tom Bonin. And Bjorn Leukemans and Philippe Gilbert still chasing on. David Miller just been tailed off. I think a little bit too far, too hard for David Miller.
And of course, Miller finishing the 3 days of Pana. You must remember all of those riders, really just prepared for the one today, and Cancellara, Bonin, not riding the 3 days of the Pana. They prefer to go away and just prepare quietly for this one. So when you finish the Pan and do the final time trial, you're going to pay the price a little bit as well. And I think Miller is having that feeling and getting that at the moment.
Cancellara, of course, will be one. Well, he'll join the other 10 men who've won all 3 opening classics in their career. Bonin wanted to win this one because he wanted to make it triple wins in both the Ronde van Vlaanderen and the Paris-Roubaix race. He has the chance to gain revenge next weekend on Fabian Cancellara in Paris-Roubaix. We'll be covering it live here on Eurosport. Sean and I trackside in the Roubaix Velodrome, waiting to see which mud-besplattered man will come round to become victor of that hell of the north. The weather's kept off here today. It was raining at the start in Bruges, but it cleared up for the rest of the day. Just the odd, very light shower. We had a lot of nervous crashes about halfway through the race as people started to jostle for position, but in the end it came down to select group. It's typical Tour of Flanders, where the big favourites, the big strong men, whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down. In the end it came to these two men, Tom Boonen and Fabian Cancellara, with 10 kilometres to go on the Muur. This man here rode away from his main rival, Tom Boonen, with such grace and such style. I mean, just brilliant riding. And he'd done the same on the Molenberg to shed everybody else, and only have Boonen with him. By far the strongest man on the day. Terrific riding. Cancellara all by himself now with 10 kilometres to go, time trialling his way to victory here in the Tour of Flanders in the Swiss national champions jersey. Interestingly, the first non-Belgian, I think, if I'm right in saying so, to win the Tour of Flanders was Suter, a Swiss rider. And Cancellara in just fabulous, magnificent form. Where is Boonen? Can we see him physically? Oh, it's just got such a huge gap. It has been the pattern over the last few years, though, Sean, that riders just ride away from people towards the end.
Yes, well, it's such a difficult final, and you know, with the Muur and then the Borsberg, it's you know, big task. And when you consider all the climbs, you know, in the race, 15 in total, you know, it's a race that, you know, only the fittest and only the strongest survive. And we've, you know, seen so many times that a rider who is in good shape and has that just a little fraction of percentage better than the others, fitness level, strength wise, in the end, he can just go on and ride away on his own. And you know, that's a familiar sight in the Tour of Flanders. And Cancellara, of course, when he gets into top shape and he's just, you know, touched it at the right moment, he's coming in the last 10 days really good. And last week, you know, in the E3 prize, he was so impressive. And when he attacked in the end, he was with Boonen and Fletcher, and he just rode away from him in the final, inside the final kilometre. It's such an unbelievable, you know, power that he could do it on the flat. And when he, you know, when you can do it there, well then, if you have that little bit on the climb, you can, you know, you can certainly do it. And Cancellara has, you know, he's just got his top peaked at the right moment, and we've seen it today, the way he's ridden up the Muur. And you know, we must remember that Boonen is in his very close to his top, if not at his top, and but Cancellara just that little bit of a stronger and a powerhouse, really.
Absolutely. You have to wonder what difference a week will make, though. But maybe Boonen will just take that extra week to get on to super top form for Paris-Roubaix, or maybe this man can carry it on. What is the window of opportunity that you have when you get onto top peak form?
Well, I think you know, there's possible 3 weeks there, and Cancellara, as I said, he's only come into it in the last 10-15 days. Maybe last weekend was, you know, just coming to his really top shape, and certainly today he's at that, and he can certainly go on into the Paris-Roubaix and you know, still hold on to it. It was a bit more difficult in Paris-Roubaix with a Boonen. If he is in good shape, it's a bit difficult to get rid of riders in a Roubaix, where on a climb, if a rider is suffering that little bit and you have that little bit extra, well then you can really cause them problems.
Big losers today. Philippe Gilbert once again not making it across to these two. Just didn't have the, well, he doesn't have the out-and-out power of riders like Tom Boonen and Fabian Cancellara to get there. Stein de Volder, the defending champion, not on top form. We did wonder, I think everybody's wondered in Belgium especially, whether he is on top form, but Stein de Volder not getting into that chasing group, but not being in super top shape. Maybe outsiders like Kinziato, who could do well next week in Roubaix, not being able to get into top form here. Just so smooth, Cancellara. I can't believe he's got such fantastic form even after 260 kilometres. He just looks fantastic. I wonder if he'll lend me his legs for tandem riding. It would be quite handy. I'm sure my tandem pilot would just quite happily put his feet up over the bars, and if that were the case. Boonen, big strong rider. himself. Now, does it go through your mind at this point, Sean, saying, look, okay, I'm going to push hardest as I can now, but I don't want to take everything out of me. I've got Roubaix next week.
No, I don't think you'd be concerned about Roubaix. There's sufficient time to recover. You know, you've got the full week. He's just going to, you know, just calculate your effort here, and you know, don't go into the red, certainly, because you have to remember the chasers behind, as we see the 45 seconds back to the chasers behind Bonin. So you just work on that basis, getting the time check from the team car, and you know, he realised a long time back that there was never any chance to get back to Cancellara to catch up with him. So it's all about riding now to secure your second place on the podium here, and you know, that's a magnificent performance when you're up against a rider in Cancellara's form. But looking at Gilbert, I think he's put in a very good performance, because he hasn't been in good shape. We see it in Paris-Nice. He was quite a bit off, but he's coming, and I think his objective, his main target this year, is the Ardennes Classic a bit later. So you know, it's difficult to, you know, to come into shape now, be in shape now, and hold for the Ardennes Classic. That's almost an impossibility.
So he's looking at 3 weeks hence, or 2 weeks hence, for Amstel Gold, and then on to Liège, Bastogne-Liège, Flèche-Wallonne, all those rides where we move to the east of Belgium. And we move into the Ardennes region, the tarmac classes, the hilly ones, especially things like Amstel. He'd be pretty good at that sort of thing. But you can see the sort of form this man has been developing over the last 2-3 weeks. 17th in Milan-San Remo for Fabian Cancellara, 16th in Dwars van Vlaanderen, and first, of course, in the E3. So it's just been ramping up very slightly and peaking at exactly the right time.
Yes, and in Dwars van Vlaanderen, he just gave an exhibition there of riding on the front. With about 50 kilometers to go, he started to ride for Breschel, and it was unbelievable. The pulling he was doing in the front. He had 30 riders in his wheel, and everybody was just hanging there. And we could see at that moment that, you know, he was getting into good shape. Then Breschel goes in the attack, and everybody looks at Cancellara. So of course, then on the E3 prize, he just, you know, was that much stronger again, and we could see that the form was really coming. And for today, I think the riders know more, because they're with the guy, they're with him every year over the past couple of years, and they can feel that he was going to be very difficult to beat.
He's not just classy, he's just downright frightening. Well, Flanders' finest, Tom Bonin, still pushing hard to secure that second place. And it's a big thing for the crowds here as well to see him out here at the head of affairs, so to speak. Well, he was at the head of affairs. Fabian Cancellara just never looks as though he's even suffering, to be honest. But he's absolutely ripped for this race and for next weekend's Paris-Roubaix. The ability to suffer of this man is incredible. He has great strength, but he just is capable of suffering more than other riders. And a terrific win it's going to be for Saxo Bank. And will they carry it across into Paris-Roubaix, where they've had such a great history in recent years? Of course, this man has won Paris-Roubaix already, and he will become, as I say, one of a handful of riders to win all 3 early season classics. And the last one was André Schmil. Of course, had Belgian citizenship then, but he's now a Moldovan again. He won Milan-San Remo in '99, and Paris-Roubaix won back as far as 1994. But the last of his wins, when he was 37 odd years of age, was in the Tour of Flanders in 2000. Henny Kuiper, he won all 3. Jan Ras, De Vlaminck had multiple wins in Oregon. I think he won Milan-San Remo 3 times, did he? Won Paris-Roubaix 4, Mr. Paris-Roubaix as he was known as. But the most successful of them all, of course, Eddy Merckx. I think I'm right, is it 7 Milan-San Remos he won? Terrific win streak, 7 for Eddy Merckx in Milan-San Remo, 2 of the Tour of Flanders and 3 Paris-Roubaix. So by far the most successful of the winners of all 3 early season classics. Well, where can he go from here, this man? He's won the World Time Trial Championships. He's had a good stab at the World Road Championships. That must be his next objective, surely, I would have thought.
Well, I think some of the other classics, he said, the Ardennes Classic is the ones which he would like to win. And he feels that he can do that over the next couple of years. And you know, when you look at the performance in last year's World Championship on a very, very difficult circuit, when he is in top shape, he can get over the more hillier events, and for that matter, the hillier classics like the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I think he could, you know, win that in the years to come. A Tour of Lombardy, maybe that one, the climbs are that bit longer, but he has mentioned, I've read it, that the Liège-Bastogne-Liège is a classic that he feel that he could win in a number of years.
And he's right in the middle of his best period. What, 29 now, something like that? Fabian Cancellara. He's still got years to go. Probably what, 3-4 years of his best riding. Oh, that's a lonely road, isn't it? By himself, Tom Bonen. It's always the strangest part for me, this part where you've got like less than 5 kilometers to go. You come out of the Mur with all that screaming crowd, and then by that time the race has been in recent years sorted out. Somebody's ahead and it goes silent because there's no crowds at the side of the road, and the poor guy who's chasing on to try and stay there, it's just deathly silence even when you're watching him on the screen. Rather eerie. 2 kilometers to go then for Fabian Cancellara.
And for Tom Bonen, I think, yes, he hasn't the screaming that he had on the Moor, but I think the legs are screaming at him at this point. We can see the difference when we see Cancellara with the cadence he has got here, and we go back to Tom Bonen, and he's suffering very, very difficulty continuing to keep the pedals turning.
Under the 1 kilometer to go banner then for Fabian Cancellara. He's still motoring on, but he's easing up a little bit. He knows he's got it in the bag. He's a very happy man. What's he got here? A little angel of some sort, is it? Oh, he's a very happy man. Fabian Cancellara, he attacked on the Molenberg. He shed most of the major rivals there, and then he attacked again on the Mur and just rode away. I can't really tell what that is.
Swiss gold.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Fabian Cancellara, fabulous ride. He just rode away from Tom Bonen. Bonen looking like he was all over the bike, and Cancellara just sitting on it, out of the saddle, just winds it up a little bit more. He's sort of shaking his head. He can't believe it. Well, you better believe it, son. You're the best on the day by a long, long way. Bjarne Riis congratulates him. He's got a ride to the line. Lone victor of the Tour of Flanders, Fabian Cancellara, winner in E3 just a week ago. Fabulous ride by the Swiss national champion. He's the world time trial champion. He grabs a Swiss flag going over. The first man to win the Tour of Flanders who wasn't a Belgian was Suter, a Swiss man. A great tradition. Kept on by Fabian Cancellara. He's in terrific shape, and who would bet against him for Paris-Roubaix next weekend? Victory goes to Fabian Cancellara. And he is a very happy man indeed. Terrific win, Sean. Brilliant win.
Yes, and just a magnificent performance. And when you go out there as one of the big favourites, and you know, he certainly was that. You know, he just did a magnificent job, and you know, to take up the race so early, you know, it is always, you know, a little bit you're a little bit nervous doing that. The others, if it doesn't succeed, and when we see the situation with Bonen and Cancellara out front, if that group of, you know, 20-25 riders had managed to get back in there, well then, you know, you would pay for that effort maybe, but he had to do that, and I think he calculated very well, really given a difficult ride to Bonen, not to allow him to get a handy ride to the Muir, for example, or to the Busberg, and you know, just the sheer power and the fitness coming out on top.
Second this year then for former winner of the Tour of Flanders, twice a former winner, Tom Bonen. Well, maybe he can get his revenge next week at Paris-Roubaix, which he's already won 3 times. But that was a hard ride for Bonen. Can't take anything away from Fabian Cancellara or that man there. Clearly in super good form, but disappointing. He knows on the day that when a rider of Cancellara's capabilities is on top form, then there are very, very few, if any, in the world who can match him. So the Swiss champion comes in first here in the Ronde van Vlaanderen under lovely, lovely spring sunshine. Well, the chasing group still have to catch these two. It's Bjorn Leukemans and Philippe Gilbert who will take the 3rd spot. Leukemans, who took a bit of a toe, to be frank, starts the sprint early. Can Gilbert wind it up and come past him? He should be able to. He's the better of the sprinters. And Gilbert takes 3rd ahead of Bjorn Leukemans of Vacances. 4th spot for him. Gilbert matches his position of last year then. 3rd spot. And Steinewolde, last year's winner, is in the group of behind. Heinrich Hausler, who was 2nd last year, is not in the race. Who's going to take the sprint for 5th? Bernhard Eisel is the man leading them out at the moment. There's a whole bunch of riders in here. Yeah, it looks like Farah. Farah, then Hinkepi, and then I'm not sure who the Cervelo rider was. It could have been Roger, actually. Fabian Cancellara takes a memorable win, a beautiful win. That was class riding. And Tom Bonen, he will have said congratulations to Fabian Cancellara already, but you can bet your bottom dollar he's swamped by the Belgian press at the moment. And even the Flandrians have to applaud that. A lot of these will have heard it on the radio, seen it on the box. Well, they've all had news circulating. There's a big screen up at the finish. They'll have known what's gone on. They won't. They're such cycling fans. They won't hold it against Fabian Cancellara that he beat their favourite Tom Bonen. What a brilliant ride. There's the commentary boxes on the right-hand side. You can see. Well, he looks in super lean shape right now, Sean. I mean, you had him as an outside tip for the Tour de France last year, but he is a seriously class rider. Where can this man go? Surely he'll get the World Championship one day. So, Super Spartacus. Fabian Cancellara takes the win.